You know, I learned a long time ago in success, if you want what they have, you have to do what they do. And successful people follow successful people. And let me tell you, my next guest is somebody that I follow and have been following for some time. And why? Because he delivers information in regards to real estate investing that's worth listening to. And a huge social media presence, guest events with national speakers who have made millions of dollars in real estate. So let me tell you, this is somebody that I follow. And so I can't wait to introduce you to this guest. Welcome to Smart Money Moves. My name is Michelle Walker, and this is smart business, investing money, and moves that matter. And today I have with us Jason Pritchard from Jason Pritchard Real Estate. Thank you so much for joining us today.
What an introduction.
Or joining me.
Yeah, what an intro. Hopefully I can live up to that. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. This should be very fun and exciting.
You know, and there were so many questions that I wanted to ask you. So we're going to dive right in.
Let's go.
And I just want to hear first and foremost, the Jason Pritchard story. Where was it that you said to yourself, I'm done doing whatever I'm doing now?
Yeah.
I believe it was W-2 corporate world,
Yeah.
right? And you said, you know what? I want something more. I want to build something that, in my mind's eye, because I know for me too, there was a place in my life where I said, there's got to be something more.
Absolutely.
So what did that something more look like for you?
I think we all have that origin story, and mine is not a unique one. I grew up here in Fresno. My dad was a teacher at Fresno State, and my mom stayed home and raised me and my sister. And because my dad was a teacher, education was something that was also always very important in our household. So I always taught to get good grades, work really hard, go to college, get a good job, and then work until, it's retirement time, and then ride off into the sunset. And that's really what I did. And the first thing that kind of came and threw a little bit of a monkey wrench into that plan was I ended up having my first son when I was really young. I was 19 going on 20. And so I was going to school, I was working. My first son was born when I was 20 years old. And I immediately realized, I was like, hey, I was making, it's crazy, minimum wage back then was like $4.25 an hour. And I was like, this is not going to work. I had, an apartment, I had an old broken down car. I was just barely scraping by, I had a baby on the way. And I was like, I have to start making some more money. And so at the company that I was at, they had a outside sales division. I worked for this technology retailer, and they had all the guys that made the most money were the guys that didn't work in the brick and mortar store. They worked in the back offices. They wore the ties and the shirts, and they were going out and they were making commission on sales. And I was like, I need to figure out how to make money like these guys. And so I ended up getting an entry level position in that department. I quickly moved into sales, and I took to it very, very well. And I realized not only was I good at this, but I kind of liked it. And the financial compensation, I went from literally minimum wage in my first year to $60,000, almost $70,000. Right. And I was hooked. And so very quickly, I moved into a managerial position a year after that. And then I was making six figures, and then I was off to the races. And so at that point in my early 20s, 22, 23 years old, I thought that I had kind of figured out my career trajectory. I was like, this is it. I'm going to work in corporate America. I'm going to climb this corporate ladder. I'm going to get into some kind of mid-level executive position and maybe make, I don't know, $300,000-$400,000 and have the big house and the nice cars and all the stuff that comes along with that. About 7 or 8 years into that job, I started to become very disenchanted. I was very burnt out. I was getting tired of all the corporate kind of drama that comes along with working in a big organization. And I thought it was the company. So I was like, hey, maybe this is just here, right? I was still young at that time. I was in my late 20s. I was like, maybe if I go find something similar at a better company, this will solve all my problems. So I transitioned. I went to a different company. And I basically replayed the same 7 or 8 year cycle over again, right? And so at that point, I had spent close to 15 years in corporate America. I was in my early 30s, and I found myself in this spot where I was very unhappy, and I was projecting all of that unhappiness into my marriage. I was projecting it into my relationship with my kids. And it took a lot of self-awareness, and it took a lot of hard looks in the mirror. And I had to realize I thought I wasn't happy because of work or all these outside things, and it was really because of me.
Right.
And it was because I knew that I was not living up to my full potential. I just knew
something was missing.
That I was put on this earth to do more than what I was doing at that time, right? And I could look to my right and I could look to my left, and I see some of the older employees that my coworkers that were there. And I was like, well, here's my future. If I stay here, this is exactly what my future is going right here. And that was just a really, really scary kind of thought for me. And I'll be honest, Michelle, I was always kind of entrepreneurial, and I was always into investments. And I don't want to say real estate necessarily, but I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think I got turned on to it when I was like 19 years old. I started reading investment books and books on how to accumulate wealth and make money. I'd always been intrigued by that idea, right? And I just never, had the outlet to kind of like, how do I get into this? Like, what door is going to open,
like,
right?
Where were you going?
And at that point too, they call corporate America like golden handcuffs, or these corporate handcuffs, where it's like they were paying me, I was making really good money, right? And I had all the things that come along with having a family and a 6-figure salary. I had the mortgage, I had 2 car payments, I had the credit card debt, I had kids going in all the schools and practices.
On the outside, it looked perfect, right?
Not only did it look perfect, but I couldn't just, in my head, I was like, am I going to walk away from this kind of cush salary that I have and just start from zero in real estate with no experience, no nothing? Like, we're spending as much as we're making. We weren't really being smart with our money at that time, right? And we just reached this point where I will always lift up my wife and put her on a pedestal when it comes to, these big decision-making points in my life, because I went to her and I was just like, hey, I'm in this transitionary period, and I feel like if I don't try this right now, I don't think I'm ever going to do it. And I never burned any bridges. I didn't kill any relationships. And I just said, like, look, if this doesn't work, I can always come back and get a job. But I feel like I really need to try it. And it worked well for us as far as timing goes, because she had just graduated with her counseling degree. So she had just got a job at a local high school. So her income was coming up. It wasn't anything close to what we were making collectively. I was the main breadwinner. So we were taking a big step down in income, but we just said, look, let's give it a year. Let's just cut our expenses as much as we can. We'll do our best to live off of your income, right? And we'll just see if Jason can make this happen. And if it doesn't work in a year, I can always go back and get a job. And I credit my wife, Jennifer, so much, because she honestly, Michelle, believed in me more than I believed in myself at that time, right?
And what a greater inspiration is that?
And we'll get into kind of how we got started, but she was honestly like, when we first started doing like our first flips and stuff, I mean, I mortgaged our property, like HELOC, full maxed out, cashed in our life savings, maxed out every single credit card that we have. Like, not only did she say that she had faith, but she also like acted and walked in that faith and let me do all of these things that at that time, even now, like are very high risk, right? But you have to take some chances and calculated risks at the beginning. And she believed in me enough in order to do that. And in 2014, I basically burned all the boats, like Tony Robbins says, and we didn't look back. And it was a very tumultuous and kind of difficult first year.
A lot of fear, maybe.
Just like there's so many challenges that you have coming from W-2 into, even though we were commission based, right? I was still salary plus bonus. So I was still getting a regular, consistent paycheck.
Security.
Yeah. I had that security of getting a check every 2 weeks. And as soon as you come into a business like real estate investing or lending or anything, that's all it is 100% commission. You only eat what you kill. It's like you have to produce, have to produce an outcome. And until you can get good at producing an outcome, you're not getting paid, right?
Yes.
And for most people, they can't. It took me almost 12 months of working every single day before I made $1 off of a real estate deal. And so that was really hard. And there were so many times when I felt like giving up. I almost gave up. Let me
take a sigh of breath of relief on that, because let me tell you, it's been hard.
Yeah.
Getting my footprint in that arena. And let me just go back real quick to you, for Jennifer too. Like, you explained how you went from this job where you knew you wanted to do sales, and you took that information and you utilized it and you put yourself in that position and you rose to a position of success. Mm-hmm. So for her, I can totally understand and see how you could take this venture, this next step in your life, and want to put all her chips in the middle of the table.
Yeah.
She saw you do it once.
She did. She had foresight and
she
a
knew
vision
you would do it
that I didn't even have, because I didn't even correlate the experience that I had in sales as an asset, even though now it was a huge asset for me coming over into this business, because, when you're signing up to be a real estate investor or a realtor or a loan officer, you're signing up, especially on the front end, for a sales-based business. You have to have leads coming in. You have to learn how to qualify those leads. You have to be okay with getting told no and dealing with rejection.
Oh, and my friend, I can tell you, getting in there too, for me, from an office manager position at a recycling company newly divorced with 4 children.
Yeah.
And going, what's next?
Yeah.
There's got to be more.
Absolutely.
And the fear is the one thing that will that will set your trajectory into that footprint.
Yep.
Fear will motivate you more than anything.
Yep, I agree.
The fear of failure.
Yep.
And you should have that fear. That is a natural fear. Well, people used to run from that fear. Well, now we embrace it, right? Because it will be that next thing.
Embracing it, I think, is the key word. Because I think some people will respond by retracting and taking a step back, and other people will embrace it and say, hey, I'm going to be scared no matter what, and I can be scared of being broke, or I can be scared of becoming and evolving into a new person, and what I want is on the other side of this fear over here. So let me just embrace it and figure out how to overcome these challenges, and that's what's going to unlock the future that I want. I became in more fear about not trying. Good for you. That's it. I love that.
About not trying. If I'll know that I'll go. If I don't try, I'll be always wondering what could have happened.
Yep.
Just like you did when you entered into your real estate journey.
Yep.
So let me ask you, who were some of your key figures when you got started in 2014?
I didn't.
Did you follow people, or were there certain people you kept your eye on?
This is really, I'm glad that we're talking about this. So when I started in 2014, because we walked away from my salary and we were taking basically every dollar that we had and putting it towards our projects, I didn't have disposable income to hire a coach or to pay for training or anything. So I was left to take what I call just the DIY approach. So what I did was the resources that I really tapped into back then and that are still valuable now. One was the Bigger Pockets podcast. For people that are not familiar, Bigger Pockets is probably the biggest online platform for real estate investing in the world. And so there was then and now this huge real estate investing forum where you could go in and ask a bunch of questions. And they also had one of the top podcasts at the time. And I would treat those podcast episodes like I was studying a textbook in like my old college school days, right? So I would, there's podcasts where you can tell people, talk about like their origin story, and you can get all the warm and fuzzy feelings and get motivated. And then there's podcasts in Bigger Pockets library where it's like, here's the tactical how to. Yeah. So I just skipped to those and I said, okay, where am I at in the business? I'm in the business where I need to learn how to find deals. So I went straight to that part of the podcast and I found all the episodes that pertain to how do we find deals? How do we run numbers? Education. And I was like, let's just start here. And I took that information, I would literally sit there, read, I would take notes, and then I would do my best to apply. And I didn't, at the beginning anyways, I did not have a network or friends or a local mentor or a coach or anybody that I could go ask questions. And so I was literally figuring it out on my own as I went, just shooting from the hip. And I always say, we're flying the airplane and fixing it if there's a problem while we're in midair. We're not landing this thing to fix the problem. The airplane cannot go down. So we have to scramble to do our best to do both.
We have a mechanic on board.
That can be really fun, and it can also be really scary all at the same time.
Oh, frightening.
Yeah. So that was the first, really honestly, 18 to 24 months for me was.
Can I share some real transparency with you? Okay, so I'm just now getting started because I'm a workhorse, right? I've done well in my career and my, successful in my mortgage business, but I too became at a point where I become stagnant, unfulfilled, not grateful about where I am in my life because something feels like it's missing. And I too have suffered recently, and which kind of almost the whole reason I'm here doing this and making different changes and different strides in my life in the real estate investment platform is because I believed for the last decade, honestly, Jason, that it was too late. I was too old. And I know that is just the fear part of me speaking to me in my own voice and telling me and now I don't believe that. I'm starting to read, I'm diving back into the books that tell me that, it's never too late to make a change. And I want that to be my message. To even my legacy, my children, my grandchildren. I have 4 beautiful grandchildren, and I want them to know it doesn't matter who you are, what age you are. I have made huge milestones in my life in different areas, and this is the next. Right, on to the next. You got to have a next set goal or a purpose. So, okay, so for someone like me, even getting started in this field, tell me a little bit about that money piece, right? So I know that a lot of people think that they have to have a grandiose amount of money to get started in this business. And what about that person who may not have a lot, but they want to, is it about the relationships? Is it about where do they go?
It's one of the biggest misconceptions that I had when I first started, and that I see all the time because I get so many people that reach out to me and ask that same question. It's like, well, I want to buy a rental property, but I don't have any money, or I don't need this. And I'm not saying that you can do this business and buy a bunch of properties with no money out of pocket. Eventually, you're going to have access to some liquid capital, but you do not need it to start. And I'm living proof that can happen. And so here's what my suggestion would be for everybody that's out there that's struggling with some of those limiting beliefs. The way that I have found success in this business, and I'll take it even one step further back. If I had to start over tomorrow with nothing, like no cash, no network, no relationships, nothing at all, except the knowledge that I have right now, all that I would focus on is learning how to generate off-market opportunities that you can buy at a discount. And the way that you do that is by learning how to solve problems for those very specific subset of sellers. Right. And so when we're buying off market, automatically that's going to disqualify probably 90 to 95% of the properties. Right.
Yep.
And so a big mistake that I make, and a lot of people make, is where do we go when we start to underwrite deals or look for opportunities? We go to Zillow or we go to MLS if we're licensed. And
magic question.
Sort by the cheapest house, and we put in all the fixer-upper keywords, and then we do this. And honestly, guys, by the time a property has hit MLS, the margins are going to get so compressed because you're fishing out of the same fishing hole that everybody their mom is doing.
Is it saturated?
It's. I don't believe in the competition. I don't like any of those words, but I do believe in statistics, and I do believe in the law of averages. And the statistics are going to show if I'm fishing in a pond with 10,000 other people and I move to a pond when there's 100 other people, the likelihood that I'm going to catch a fish is probably higher over here. I believe in that, right? Okay. So let's just be smart and say what's going to give us statistically the best chance to find success. And most people will just beat their head against the wall trying to make deals pencil on MLS. And they make hundreds of offers and none of them get accepted.
Right.
And guys, I've done 450 flips in the last 10 years. I've literally bought less than 5 properties that have ever been listed on the MLS, right? So out of 450 deals, 445 of them I bought off market. And so here's what I mean off market. So let's unpack that because I think this is really important, right? Good. So if we're eliminating the stuff that's listed, okay, then who are we talking to? Okay. And in my business, right, we see the same 8 to 10 problems come up over and over in every single conversation on every appointment that we go to when we're meeting with our sellers, right?
Okay.
And I'm just going to kind of list these out in no particular order, right? So they're inheriting a house that they don't want. They're a landlord that's dealing with a tenant that is not paying them, so they're going through an eviction. They're a landlord that has owned a number of properties. There isn't really a succession plan in place with their family to pass the properties on. They're getting older and they're ready to liquidate and retire. There are people that own properties that have deferred maintenance. So the properties themselves are distressed. And we've all seen them driving through a neighborhood where every house is dialed. And then there's that one boarded up house, or there's that one house that just sticks out like a sore thumb that's just like, oh my God, what is this? You know what I mean? And then there's situations where there's financial distress, right? There may be somebody behind on their mortgage. They lost their job. They're getting relocated. There's a divorce. There's medical things. And whether you guys realize this or not, all of those scenarios, every single one of them is a matter of public record. That information is just kind of floating around there, right? And some of it's is either free or very low cost and easy to get. And some of it is more expensive and there's a higher barrier to entry. But first things first is we need to understand the profile of the sellers that we want to talk to. Then we need to understand the problems that they have. And then we've got to start learning how do we solve each one of these particular problems. And once we understand those things, then all of my old sales muscles kicked in because it's like, okay, I get it. I'm not going to look on MLS. Here are the problems. This is what I need to start learning, right?
Yeah.
Don't become an expert at every single problem at the beginning. Pick 1, 2 max and start learning.
Okay.
What's probate and what does probate mean? If I'm dealing with a landlord that's going through an eviction, what does all that stuff mean, right? If we're dealing with a seller in foreclosure, how do those things work? So pick one thing and become really good at it first, right? And then learn another skill and then learn another skill. We can do all of those things, but I've been in the business 10 years. Right? So we're talking about 10 years worth of education. Okay. Now, the trick is once we identify those people and we're able to go access that information, then all of my old sales and marketing like muscles kicked in from all of my 15 years in corporate America, right? It's like we have this info. Now we need to turn our marketing on and we need leads coming into our system. So the things that work in marketing in our business, very simple, right? We can get that information and we can send them a piece of mail. We can pick up the phone and call them. We can pick up the phone and text them. We can create some type of internet advertisement or a website where they come out and seek us out. We can go to their house, knock on their door. It's like 5 things.
Okay.
That's it. So you're going to have to pick one of these 5 things, okay?
And stick to it.
And then you're going to have to stick with it, right? What works best for us is direct mail. So we
I was going to say, I hear you talk about direct mail all the time.
We send out about 30,000 pieces of mail every single month, and we get sellers that and we specifically focus on talking to the sellers that have all the problems that we just discussed. We send them a piece of mail. They look at it and they're like, yeah, I am ready to sell. And as soon as they pick up the phone and they call us, then that lead enters our system. And then it's just like a sales funnel like you do in any sales-based business. The lead comes in top. Right? Our job is to qualify it. So as it goes down the funnel, we're disqualifying the ones that don't make the right sense to work with and are not the right fit for our business. And we're qualifying the ones that do make sense to work with. And then at the end of it, it spits out a deal. And I think of it as an assembly line. So once we come to an agreement with the seller, it goes on the assembly line and then down it goes. And we can buy the house, we can fix it up and sell it. We can buy the house, we can fix it up and rent it. We can buy the house and sell it to another investor without doing anything. There's all these different exit strategies that we can do to make money. But the start, I say all of that to say, the start of what you're doing has to be getting good at finding those opportunities. Nothing else matters. And here's how I'm going to test you now so that way you can tell.
Okay, good. Okay?
So
here we go.
If you have $10 million in the bank, right? And your friend, family member, or spouse is a contractor, or let's say you're a general contractor. So you have all of the construction experience, and we have all the money in the bank. So the other 2 big hurdles that most people say is I don't have money and I don't have contractors, right? So let's say we give you the money and the contracting experience. We just gift you that, right? Can you do anything with either of those 2 things if we can't find the right deal or the right opportunity where the numbers where we can buy it at a price where we can fix it up and still sell it and make a profit margin. If this doesn't exist, nothing else matters. And what most people really struggle with is they get shiny object syndrome in this business. So they want to learn how to do deals, but then they don't want to do the calling and the door knocking and all the painful stuff. The dirty work is what I call it. That really sucks that most people, the prospecting and the lead generation that most people just don't want to do, right? Mm-hmm. So then they're like, well, let me focus on the money. And then let me go talk to contractors. And let me go to Home Depot and pick out all of my stuff. And then let me build my website out. And then let me do that. And they trick themselves into thinking that they're making progress in their business and they're just making themselves busy. And they're not moving the needle. And
see, spinning the wheel is
not the same as moving the needle. And we always need to be doing, especially at the beginning, we call them revenue generating activities, things that are going to bring money into the business.
Right.
And going and picking out the materials for your flip when you don't have a flip is not going to generate any revenue.
And we have steered clear of that because I have a business partner and we've been pondering on this idea for a couple of years now. And so one of the things that really set my sights straight, so to speak, was Deal Champs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I attended Deal Champs at Table Mountain when Dean and
Stratton.
Yeah, Stratton were there. And the guest lineup that you had, and yourself included, I mean, the information, notebook, I had my pen out the whole time. Yep. I was in the front row because, people in the front row want to learn the most.
Absolutely.
Right? So I very much got in tune with the idea that my focus, in real estate investing has to be on lead generating.
That's it.
Lead generating, good lead generating.
Yes.
So let me tell you, I have put some hours in
Good.
And some calls. No direct mail yet.
Yes.
Those kinds of things. But I know that my time is the most important thing that I have at this point, right?
Yep.
So making this calls, but yes, rejection at every turn.
That's right.
Finding out and not really understanding how to structure the deal and getting, involved. Like, Scott is very instrumental in helping me figure out those numbers and those kinds of things. But yeah, it's that thing, and knowing, like, give yourself a break.
Yes.
That it's going to take some time. You're going to have to
100%.
master your pitch. These people are going to need to feel comfortable when they talk to you about giving you their information, because most of the time that stuff's pretty sensitive.
It is. It's very sensitive.
Can very personal matters,
and you're
right?
You're dealing with a lot of times sellers that are teetering on the edge, right? And it requires you to be able to go over there and really first establish trust, rapport, and get the seller to believe genuinely and authentically that you're there with their best interest
to help them.
Right, to help, right? And we have to determine whether or not the solution that we provide as real estate investors is the right solution for their problem. So for us, I call it taking a consultative approach in our business, because my team is licensed. We also know how to make an investment offer. We also know how to do something creative in between. So what we like to do is go to those sellers and lay out all the options at their disposal and say, hey, if you want to go with the cash offer, right? Here's the pros and cons in a cash offer. And usually what we tell sellers is, if you want to go with the cash offer, we call it pressing the easy button. So if you want to press the easy button, we can make that happen. You can have money in your account in 7 days. You don't have to fix any of this stuff. You don't even have to clean the place out. I'll buy it exactly as I see it here today, but you need to understand that you're trading some of the equity that you have in your house for a fast and easy sale. And if you're okay with that, then here's the easy button, right? But if your goal, like my goal would be, if I was going to sell a property, is to sell it and make as much money as I possibly can.
Most of the people.
And if that's the case, right, what we want to do is we want to, and I don't mean disqualify in a bad way, but we don't want to waste a seller's time or our time if their goal from the jump when we talk to them the first time is hey, I want to maximize price. We got to put our agent hat on and talk to them about listing, because it doesn't make sense for us to go make a cash offer to that same seller if that's not really the right solution for their problem, right? But some sellers, they don't know. So we can say, hey, if you really want to make the most money that you possibly can, here's what's going to need to happen. We're going to fix this. We're going to have to fix that. You're going to have to put the money up. You can even use our trusted contractors and subcontractors. And then we'll put our agent hat on when this is all said and done. We'll list it on the market. It's going to take 4 to 6 months to get all of this done, but I guarantee you will make more money than going with the easy button route, right? So here's that. Or we can do something creative that's in between, where maybe, I don't have the cash to fix everything and I don't really want to do it. So maybe Jason's team will put up the guys, we'll put up the money, you guys put up the house, and we'll almost be kind of partners on this thing, where you can make a little bit more money than the cash option, but not as much as that, but you don't have the risk and the money and the time factor that's in there. And we just say, here's all 3 options. If selling the house is what you want to do, these are the 3 ways that you can do it. I'm 100% confident that my team can facilitate and make this happen for you. Which one of these feels like the best one to you? And then we take all the friction out of the sales process.
Exactly. Their shoulders drop.
And
they
it's like,
breathe
wow.
a little and say, hey, you know what? He's really here to help me.
He is. And
he's not sales.
And I'm not forcing you to list it when you don't want to list. And I'm not forcing you to take an offer for 40 or 50 or 60 cents on the dollar when that's not really the right option either, right? We're saying, you're the captain of the ship. You tell us where to go and we'll help steer it there.
Yeah, because you're going to determine what they really want to do based on the resources that they have.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And so it's just that process.
Equity, money, and time.
It's that process over and over and over again. But again, for the people that are listening, wanting to get started, in order to even get yourself in a position where you're at the kitchen table talking to a seller like that, what do we got to focus on? All the way back to the beginning. And who are these people? What are their problems? How do I learn to solve their problems? Then we turn our marketing on.
So where did you go to get that information in the beginning?
Podcasts, literally podcasts, Michelle. I would listen to podcasts, and then I would be like, okay, so for instance,
but like lead information, is that where you went to too?
So one of the best resources that we still use now, and this is a great resource for lots of new investors too, because it's not free, but it's $100 a month. And if you don't have $100 a month, then this is probably not the right business for you, right? So we use a resource called Property Radar, and it's such a robust and powerful tool.
I heard so much about it.
Where you can go in and you can literally, they have these list building tools that are in there, and you can say, hey, I want Fresno County, all single family duplex and apartments with a minimum of 30% equity. And then we can layer on all these different problems. You can layer on tax delinquency, you can layer on foreclosure, you can layer on what we call absentee owner. So we're only marketing to people that have rental properties. You can pick and choose all of these different problems that are there, right? And say, I want every house.
So you can really set your demographic.
And in 3 minutes, I can have a list of every property with the address, the owner's name. Some of them will have the owner's number.
And then your team's on the phone.
Done. And then we can either put it into our software system so they can call. I can upload it into my mailing system where we're going to mail them. We can text them, or we can, if we really love the house and we can't get a hold of the seller through any of the other channels, we'll send somebody over there to go knock on their door.
That's right.
Yeah. And so it's that process is where most people, they start to disconnect because they're like, well, Jason, I called 5 people yesterday and they all said no. And I said, well, you should call 500 more people.
That's right.
And then do the same thing the next day.
If your fear is rejection, then you're never going to make it.
And then do the same thing the next day. My team calls on average, just dials. This doesn't mean we talk to this many people, but we have an automatic dialer that they call. And they're 800 to 1,000 dials every day per team member, per person, per day. So if you think about that, Jason's got 4 people that all they do is stay on the phone all day long. They're dialing 800 to 1,000 people per person. Wow. That means we're making 3,000 to 4,000 dials every single day, 5 days a week. And then we have one person that comes in on Saturday. Plus I'm sending 30,000 pieces of mail out. Plus I have another person that sends 3,000 text messages, right? So it's like, I've already come to grips with sales and this business being a numbers game.
So what is that conversion ratio? Like,
that's a really good question.
Like,
so for the salespeople,
I know that I have tools and systems that measure conversion.
So we look at first inbound marketing versus outbound marketing. So outbound marketing or cold marketing is cold calling, cold texting, cold outreach. We're just literally, we have a targeted list and a filtered down list, but these sellers have never expressed any interest. And so we're doing cold outreach to them. Your conversion rate on that is going to be much lower, right?
Sure.
Because they've never inquired, they don't know. So there's going to be lots more rejection with something like that. With inbound marketing, like mail is inbound, meaning we send out 30,000 pieces of mail. We get a couple hundred, we get 300 to 400 phone calls every single month from those pieces of mail. And we're probably converting.
That's a great conversion,
We're
by the way.
probably converting. So think about this, guys. If we send out 30,000 pieces of mail, we do 3 deals a month from direct mail. Okay. So 30,000 pieces of mail go out. We get 300 to 400 phone calls. And from those phone calls, we're probably disqualifying right off the top 50%, maybe 60%, because they're like, take me off your list. I'm not interested. This is a scam, blah, blah, blah. So you have to have the alligator or the rhinoceros skin to just let those calls kind of bounce off and not bother you.
Just expect it.
Right? And then you get to the people that are on one end of the spectrum, they're curious. They're like, hey, I get this thing. Talk to me more about what this is. On the other end of the spectrum, that piece of mail just hit them at the perfect place, perfect time. They're like, Jason, I'm going through an eviction. My lawyer dropped the ball again. My tenant hasn't paid me in 5 months. I am done with this place. Like, what is it? I don't even care, right? Like, I just want to be done. I don't want to get the tenant. And what's an agent going to do? An agent, because I'm an agent, they're going to say, well, you're going to have to get the tenant out of the property and you're going to have to fix this and that. And I don't want to deal with that.
You can't get them out until you fix this and that.
Exactly, right? And it's like, I don't want to deal with that, right? And so it's like, then you get, those are what I would consider the qualified leads. And those leads typically will, we measure cash conversion cycle from the moment that we spend a marketing dollar, right, to the moment we get revenue back in from a deal. Right. So on warm leads, the mail leads, or when we do internet ads and the sellers reach out to us or they find us on the internet and they just search our website and it pops up, those are warm leads. Those typically take 1 to 3 months from when the dollar gets spent to when the revenue's back in our company, right? Cold, right? Cold calling, text messaging, door knocking is cold too.
Much lower.
Those can take 6 to 9 months before we see a dollar.
Much slower conversion.
It's slower, yes,
but not
exactly.
Lower.
Not necessarily. Well, it's lower and it's also slower. But the benefit of cold is warm outreach costs a lot of money.
Yes.
Right? So direct mail, I spend $25,000 a month.
Does one deal cover the direct mail cost?
Yeah, our average deal from direct mail is more than the cost of our monthly rate. A lot of people just don't have patience at the beginning, right? They said, well, I've been on the phone for 30 days, Jason. And I said, listen, industry standards say that your cold call lead will take a minimum of 6 months to convert from the first time you talk to them.
I feel like I'm doing something
so
right.
if you've only done it for 30 days, guess what? You got 5 more months to go.
Right.
Okay, so let's just be real
good.
about what this is. Okay,
Yeah,
and so I'm just telling you from the jump, because I don't want to create any false sense of expectation. Real estate investing is not some get rich quick thing.
No, it's not. It
isn't.
takes patience,
It does.
perseverance,
It takes
and
lots of
action. I'm
patience.
hearing a lot of action.
Yes, exactly.
You
But
know,
if you
and
can do that, you can have
consistency.
these amazing. We've been talking a lot about all the hard work, but there are so many amazing outcomes and that have happened in my life because of this. My life has changed for the better in literally, Michelle, every single aspect. Like, so I say this, and I'm not even exaggerating to you. Like, I wake up every day and I really genuinely feel like I'm living my dream life. Now, does that mean I don't have problems? Does that mean I don't have headaches in my business? Does that mean that I don't have fires that I have to put out from time to time because things come? Of course I do, just like everybody else.
Sure.
It's not perfect.
Life on life terms is going to happen.
Because when you have all these amazing outcomes, guess what? You have lots of complex problems to solve. And I say that all the time as you become more successful, the problems don't get easier. The problems actually get harder.
Yes, and
more
bigger.
difficult to solve,
Yes.
right? And so you will never level up and get all of the good without coming with the obstacles and the challenges. And you just have to be ready for that. But I would never trade it for anything in the world. And I can vaguely remember still what it used to feel like when I was in my cubicle at corporate America. And this, what I'm doing now, is what life is supposed to feel like. That's how I say it. Like, what I dreamed that life could be, this is what it is. And so
you've put no limits on your success. And I think for somebody, like that, who drives to have that space, to be in that mindset, because it really is about a mindset.
It is.
It's a shift in mindset.
100%.
And it's okay for somebody to be okay with where they are. But when that shift, I know for me personally, like that mindset is, it's a goal I need to obtain.
Yes.
It is something that I need to strive for, because why? The convenience.
Yes.
Life needs to be convenient.
Yes.
And we've lived and we've done and we've worked hard. We've raised children, and I've watched your travels. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And there's people, when I can say, when I introduced you and I said, if you want what they have, you have to do what they do. Yeah. And that's hanging on the shirt tails and the coat tails of the people who are successful.
I agree.
And you see that
and
firsthand,
every
and you
successful
know it
person,
can work.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
Yes.
You just have to have determination. You have to have perseverance. You have to have drive, and you have to be okay with failing.
And let me.
Right?
I love what you just said right now, and I want everybody to know nothing that I am doing right now is a secret. Nothing is proprietary. There is no secret sauce. The things that I'm doing now is just because I modeled other successful people. And I would say 99, if not 100% of the other successful people that I around are just modeling what other successful people did before them. We're not reinventing the wheel. And I think people want to overcomplicate it and think like real estate investing in and of itself is simple, but it's not easy. And I think that's an important, it's a little bit nuanced, but we have to make sure that we're clear here. If you can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and you're not afraid to talk to people, if you can do those 5 things, you can find success in real estate investing. And anybody can do those things if they want to, if they're willing to put the work in. Anybody can do those 5 things. People want to make it more complicated because they struggle with one or multiple of and it's usually not the math. It's usually the talking to people and all of the challenges.
Relationships.
Yeah, the building the relationships. Yeah, I'm an introvert. They label themselves with all of these different words and they speak all this negative language over themselves and they don't realize they're just reinforcing these limiting beliefs. And you said another thing about mindset, which I think is huge. Most people come to me asking for tactical help, like the how-to behind real estate. And for me, the how-to is the easy part. Yeah. Because if you just show up every day and you do what you're supposed to do, okay, the how-to will take care of itself because you're going to get lots of practice, right? If you have 500 calls Monday through Friday every single
and
day,
you're doing the math on all those,
on Friday, after you've had 2,500 calls, you're going to be better than you were on Monday. And that's just it. There's just no other way to slice that, okay? But what most people struggle with, they think it's the tactical how-to side. What most people really struggle with, and what I struggled with a lot, is what's happening up here.
Yes.
And they have
the belief system.
Self-doubt, they have fear, they have all of these limiting belief systems, and they don't realize that their relationship with money or their relationship with success or their self-confidence and their ability to strive and attain these things that feel so out of reach, those limiting beliefs are not even their own a lot of time. A lot of times it comes from family and friends, projected onto us. Yes, right? Yeah. Where from growing up, right?
So
and it's
true.
Because our parents lived in scarcity their whole lives, and then
be safe, make safe choices.
And they're like, well, isn't this risky? And isn't this blah, 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 blah? And I said, well, isn't it riskier for me to stay at the same company for the rest of my life, put all my eggs in this basket?
That's right.
And if there was a downsizing or layoffs, they would cut me in 1 second. And if they needed to replace me 6 months later, they would replace me and nobody would think anything different.
Yeah. I want to be the maker
I'd
and
rather
creator.
be in control. And that was the thing. It's like, I want to be in control of all the outcomes in my life. I want to be in control of my time. I want to be in control of my finances. I want to be I don't want anybody to be able to tell Jason, you have to be here from this time to this time in order to get a paycheck, in order to just squeak by and pay your bills. I'm very fortunate now that 10 years later, right, we have all those freedoms, and it's this amazing, liberating feeling that I wish I could just bottle up and give to everyone.
Oh, I know. And it really is. Yeah. I mean, it is truly a shift. And, I heard a long time ago, and it just resonated in my life. It's like someone said to me, when the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than your fear of change.
That's when you'll change.
Then you'll change. Yeah. You too will let it go. Mm-hmm. And that's what is it. Like, your greatest moments will come out of is hitting that bottom, is hitting some sort of bottom in your life. And desperation will make you do amazing things.
Absolutely.
Amazing things.
That's right.
And so, like, where's that bottom for, a lot of people? And I think what you do, and let's talk about a little bit about your social media platform and the things you do on social media.
Yeah.
It's very generous.
Yeah.
You give out information and tips and tricks that have made you who you are today.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's all free. It's for anybody to get.
Yep.
Now, anybody can take that to a deeper level and probably get in touch with you about some coaching, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because you do that now.
Yeah.
You offer, because the things that you learn, you offer a coaching program. But talk about the generosity in the social media. You go through every bit of almost every transaction that you do and gaining, the insight. And
I just like to share it. And here's the reason why.
And I know that about you.
And it's because I've been investing in this same market for a very long time. And when I first started, the investor market here in Fresno and Central California was not very collaborative. And Jason, as a brand new investor, could not reach out to some of the top high performers and send them a text or send them a DM and be like, hey, bro, like, what list are you mailing? And which is the best? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they would laugh at me, or they would
like, no, I'm not giving you that.
F off, dude. Like, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about, dude? And so it was a couple of different things that happened that the light bulb went off for me. One, I just figured it out because I was kind of back against the wall. I was like, I'm not going back to corporate America. So I was like, I'm the type of person, Michelle, that operates very well without a safety net. So when pressure's on, I tend to rise to the performance.
Right.
So I don't think I would be as successful if I tried to work and do this at the same time. Right. And that's not the right approach for everybody, but I know that was the right approach for me. I had to remove the safety net. And in my head, I was like, this has to happen. So that point, I could not go backwards, and I just had to figure it out. So once I started figuring it out from these podcasts and these other things that we're talking about, I was like, okay, wow, this is working. And I was like, okay, I listened to this podcast and this worked. And then I did another thing and this worked. And I was like, it got a point where I was like, is any of this stuff really secret? Because all I'm doing is just going on the internet. I mean, and finding it,
the information
and
from a free source.
Exactly. So can any of this really be a secret? And simultaneously, what happened, this was like maybe a year and a half, 2 years in, I started to get some success, and I started to intentionally get out and get outside of my comfort zone, network, and meet some other people. And here's another thing that's really cool. Most people that are not successful look at successful people and be like, well, this person will never. They look stuck up. They look blah, 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 blah. And it's actually the exact opposite, honestly. Like, if you get outside of the comfort zone and work enough courage to say, hey, Jason, I've been following you for a long time. Your story really resonates with me. I want to take my first step. I couldn't tell you how many of those messages that I get that I personally respond to with really well thought out responses, or I'll send them a really long voice memo and tell them, hey, do this, this, and this. And if you need help, follow up with me and I'll tell you what to do next. And I just didn't have access to that. And so a lot of my mentors at the beginning I was fortunate that they taught me about abundance, and they said, hey, the universe is abundant. Opportunities are abundant because I'm sitting here showing you the ropes a little bit. I'm not going to do the work for you, but I'll show you, okay, here's where you're stuck, right? This is exactly what I would do. Just go do this and come back and talk to me. Then I would do it. And it would be this problem that I'd be like, oh, I'm so stressed out about and all worried about. And then I would take their advice and it would resolve it immediately. And mentorship or coaching or that type of guidance and advice, it just shortcuts your learning curve and it speeds the whole process up. So as I started applying that, I was like, well, let me start talking to the Jason from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right? Because I can remember what it was like not having a resource, being scared, like being in that cubicle and being afraid and not knowing what to do and not having anybody to turn to. So my initial, going back to your question about social media, my initial idea behind it was, one, I just want to document what I'm doing. I just want to have a record to say, here's all the houses here's this, right? And I can also educate other people, right? And I wasn't trying to be somebody that I wasn't.
No, and it doesn't
like,
come across, Jason, I'm honestly going to tell you, and the many people that I've talked to about the social media, your social media, because I know you say that often when you're sharing information, is like, hey, I'm not doing this to brag, guys. I'm not doing this to show off and look at me. I'm doing this. And it generally comes across as, hey, this is how I did this, and this is how you can do it if you're interested
and that's
in moving in this direction. And it's just great. It's just very generous and good. Like, and it makes people like me feel like there's just really some good people.
There is good people, and I think,
and we want to see each other evolve and uplift each other. That's what it's about, the empowerment. So, like, back to this when we were talking about we're not in it for competition. We're in it for
collaboration. And we can help. And I don't believe,
because there's more to be gained in working together than working against each other.
I don't believe that. And it's been proven to me. So I don't even need any more proof. Okay. So for me, I've got 10 years of proof that this is how the universe works. So if I help Michelle and Michelle gets successful, that takes nothing away from Jason. What it actually does is our collective momentum, when we're in proximity to each other, it's like we're a magnet, and then it's like compounds, and then we go further, faster together. I just have seen that happen over and over and over again. Now, at the beginning, because we're conditioned that money is scarce and opportunity is scarce and we're supposed to compete with everybody and do all this stuff, we have all these old belief systems and bad habits that we've got to unlearn, and we've got to reprogram and instill new belief systems. And it took me a long time to do that. And so it's very important. If you're new, you've got to get, and we're very fortunate here in our market in Fresno and Central California that I've been one of the people to help kind of trailblaze this, but there's lots of people here and we all are very collaborative. We've got big groups that get together, hundreds of people, and we just share. It's like, you can go on my social media and I'll be like, here's every list that we mailed. Here's exactly where you go to mail it. And these are all the things.
I know. I've been
right.
Yeah.
And so
jocking your style a little bit. So.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't have any reason to hide any of this stuff. Right. And so for me,
well, you like seeing other people be successful.
I do. There's nothing more satisfying for me.
That just grows your business too.
It does. And that's the byproduct. And I don't even do it because of that. No. That's just a universal law that the more people that you help, the more successful you become. That's just how things work. So the more people that I'm not helping people because I want to be successful. There's no better feeling, Michelle, than getting a random DM or call from somebody that I've never met before in my life that just follows me on social media. They've never paid me for anything. They don't do
Absolutely.
anything. And they just say, Jason,
thank you.
I've been following you for 2 years and I can remember being in corporate America and being stuck. And I just bought my third rental property.
You helped me get out of that.
And you inspired me to do that, dude. And I just want to say thanks. And that is worth so much more to me than money or any like rental or anything else. It's the best feeling and Beautiful. It's never gotten old. And so now I want to figure out how to do that on a higher, bigger scale, right? So it's like on a one-to-one or one-to-small group, I'm doing that now, right? And now in social media allows me to impact more people, right? So now I want to grow and expand some of this stuff because I just want to have a bigger impact. And the money and all that stuff will take care of itself.
They say you can't keep it unless you give it away.
That's it. Like, what are you going to do with all this stuff?
What are you going to do with it? You're going to empower other people.
Yeah, and I want to empower my team. Our team is growing right now.
I really like your why.
Yeah, we've got 13 people that work for us now. We've got a really cool coaching community that's growing every single day. We've got our community here locally that's really big, and we fly and travel to lots of different places, and there are not many communities like ours here, and I'm just trying to take that and compound it and expand it and grow it bigger.
And I have no doubt in my
happening.
mind
Yep.
that you will do
That's
that
right.
because you took yourself from that corporate job and you stepped out of your comfort zone and you built this business, and it just grows from there. Now it's all about the what's next.
Yep.
And and creating a legacy.
Absolutely.
For the next generation.
Absolutely.
And I think that we're starting, I think in this particular environment where it can be real estate, the real estate environment, any type of commission, there is that competitiveness, right? That level of competitiveness where it's like, I can't help other people because it's going to take away from me. And that's just absolutely the wrong mindset.
It's 100%.
And
You're
I
competing
changed
against
that
yourself.
mindset. Yeah.
You're competing against yourself, and you're trying to be
Right.
a little bit better than you were the day before. You're trying to be a better version of Michelle than the version from 2023 or 2022. And that's what you should be measuring against, because if you're constantly progressing, everything else will take care of itself. And you only get stagnant because you're not moving in an upward trajectory. That's it. It's not because it's so crazy in our business, and there's lots of wonky stuff happening right now in the real estate market with commissions and all of that stuff. And what always used to bother me when I was in corporate America was the saying, well, this is how we've always done things. This is the way that it's always been. And I see lots of
not
people
willing to change.
Saying, well, it's always been this way. Why is it going to change? And guess what? It's changing.
It will.
It's happening right now.
The inevitable.
Whether you tell yourself that this is the way that it's always been, it's happening right now. So you can sit and hold on to these old limiting belief systems and say, this is how it's always been, or you can evolve and grow and get better. And I learned that in corporate America, and I've never been afraid to adapt and evolve. The things that I was doing in 2014, 15, 16, 17 to find deals don't work anymore. That stuff doesn't work. And so I could have said, well, back 5 years ago, all of this stuff used to work.
Ah, forget it.
Yeah, and now it's like whatever. And I see that with like some people that back from the 2009 to 12 heydays, it's like I used to go to auction and buy. You can't go buy anything at auction right now. It doesn't exist. So what are you going to do? Like talk about and reminisce about the heyday, or are we going to recreate and evolve into the higher, better version of yourself?
Yes, and I think that's the fun.
Yeah.
That is the fun. It's like, when you don't know what's next and you create.
That's right.
What's next.
That is great. Yeah, I love that. I love being in that
create
creative
what's
mode.
next because, you know what I mean? And it's ideas. It's a collaborative effort. You have to have a team that talk about that. Many of our successful people in real estate or, in business talk about it's the team.
Yep.
You're only as good as the team that you build.
That's right.
And so you have to bring people in that are like-minded, that have that same vision as you do, and forget about the negativity and take away the I can't aspect. And you have to, so I just love that. And man, thanks.
Yes, you're welcome.
So much
for
coming and sharing all of
Absolutely.
this, because this is
I feel
great
like this zip by in 10 minutes. Yeah,
I know, right?
We're gonna have to come back and do a part 2. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and cool. Believe me, you're coming back.
Good.
And I actually want to hear from the half that has supported you.
I'm trying to get her to come and
Can
be
we
a
do
little
that?
bit
Can
more.
we make that happen?
Yes,
because
I
I think that I would want to hear. Because she's a rock star.
She is.
There's no doubt. I've watched her. She's got creative intelligence. She is absolutely probably your biggest fan.
And I'm her biggest fan, and vice versa. And I would not be standing here today doing this with you without her. And so I think the next chapter for us is there are so many, husband and wife teams that are out there that need to hear like her perspective on this.
I'm bringing my husband in.
Exactly.
He's so excited for my adventure, and he supports it 100%. Always has.
And I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not the easiest person to be married with, because I'm so driven and I'm so ambitious and I'm just so like, all I do is think about this all day long. It takes a special kind of woman, Jennifer, to
She's
be
like,
able
hey, come here.
Like,
I'm here.
I need you to stop for a second. Like, it's great. And when you can turn this on and like do it during the day, but now we need our time. So we figured out a way to find harmony between business and travel. And that's a really important thing. And I'll share that with the people. It isn't about work-life balance. It's about finding harmony with all of those other things. It's never going to be, at least as an entrepreneur, 50% work, 50% family life. It's not going to be balanced like that,
set standard.
But it can't be work all the time and throws everything else out of whack. And I've been in seasons like that too. And I've had to change and become a better husband and a better father to my kids and realized like, hey, you're sitting here, Jason, saying this is all for your wife and your family, but you're not reciprocating that in the time that you invest in them because all your time is here in the business. So there has to be an off switch. There has to be a time where we can dedicate to, you did all of this to be able to spend time with them, right? And so all stuff that we can talk about. Jen and I can sit here and talk to you for 2 hours about that stuff.
Oh, good, because we're probably going to make that happen. And you guys, if you want any information from Jason, more than generous to share that with you. Just hit him up on his social media pages, visit his webpage. And also, if you want some more information on the podcast, or, it's always got to throw that in there, subscribe, like, and share.
That's right.
That's how we grow the platform. That's how we get all this good information out there. And thank you again, Jason, for
Thank you
coming
very
on
much,
the
Michelle.
show.
This was great.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it.
Great information. Good stuff. And everybody, tune in. We're going to have some more special guests for you later on. And thank you for joining us.